Good evening. This is Duane Lowry for Farms Technology and the DPP Grain Desk on Sunday, September 2nd. It's currently about 10 after 4. Actually, it's Monday. I'm used to Sunday night comments, but tonight obviously is Monday night comments due to the holiday. We're going to be higher tonight. We can talk about weather. There's certainly some developments in outside markets related to Syria and how that's going to unfold, lots of uncertainty, but I don't see that as having an impact on the grain trade, so I'm not even going to discuss that. The weather over the weekend, precip that occurred pretty much in line with expectations, maybe disappointing to the weather forecast expectations. Any place that got rain, it seemed to be very scattered and very small areas that had rains more than a half an inch. But I think that, let's back up a second. The forecast going forward, there's really no rain in the forecast for any of the areas in focus until sometime next week, early next week. But in reality, anybody that drove around this weekend, the areas in concern in the west, they're either past the point where moisture will help, or by the time we get to next week, we will be past the point of moisture where it will help. The driest areas in the west, you really saw the crops under a lot of stress the last couple of weeks, really take a toll on the plants during the last several days. You've got acres that plants are reaching maturity far ahead of where they were destined to reach maturity, and it's been at the expense of yield potential. You got plants that are dying because of lack of moisture. Yeah, it's going to be cooler this week, but I don't think it makes any difference. You got to have water, and for the plants that are already on a pathway of death, it doesn't matter, and by the time you get to early next week, you're going to have more plants that are that way. Just in the last few to several days, the downturn has been very noticeable, and the only bright spot is you can say that frost concerns are less just because the crop is advancing in maturity. But make no mistake, we're advancing in maturity at the expense of yield. Today, I traveled from Des Moines back to northeast Iowa, and the stretch of highway from Des Moines to Marshalltown, was quite a telling story. On one side of the road, you'd find fields that were never planted, and you'd find on the opposite side of the road, you'd have fields that had shown tremendous amount of stress, and corn and bean plants that were dying due to lack of moisture. And you could tell just by overlooking the field that it's exactly the same plants in the parts of the field that had suffered from excessive moisture earlier in the spring. You also had, I saw one spot along that highway where there was a fire had erupted. Don't know what caused it, but I know the dry conditions that allowed it to advance, took a big swath of the ditch and just completely destroyed any plant that was growing there. And the point is that you have a very, very dry situation out there, and it's quite obvious. Yield production has been lost, and bears will argue that you got great crops in the east. I think that's true. I wouldn't want to downplay that, but in the same token, you got some very key acres in the west that are been hurt significantly, and I've been arguing they've been hurt more than what the market has been willing to embrace. Even though the embrace of these concerns has grown in the last week or two, there's not been much embrace. A lot of rejection of bullish ideas, a lot of rejection in belief that the market can rally at this time of the year. I think there's a strong historical precedence and reasons to have those concerns, but the reality of the boots on the ground assessments, the conditions are what they are, and I don't think the market has traded that, and I think that there will be growing recognition of those problems here during the next 2 weeks. We get private estimates from FC Stone this week. That's probably going to show that concern and towards yield potential. You got USDA coming out again on September 12th. You got crop condition reports early this week. Everybody expects a decline, and I think all of these things are going to add up to a greater respect for loss of production potential, and I think that's going to be displayed in short covering activity, and there's a lot of that left to be done in corn. You don't have any shorts left in beans that haven't pretty much been blown out. but you constantly have people trying to pick a top. I think they're going to be taken out. The recent highs, which were made last week in beans, corn, those highs I think will be violated here over the next couple of weeks. And I'd look for strength tonight. I think it's a situation that even if corn would open, 5 to 10 cents higher, wherever it's at in the first few minutes of trade tonight may very well prove to be at the very bottom end of whatever this week's range will be. I think that's true about corn, beans, probably true about wheat as well. And so I look for a firm tone tonight, firm tone all week, and probably a firm tone going into the September 12th USDA report. For the DPP Grain Desk, this has been Duane Lowry.